Hello and welcome back to the show. I'm so happy to be here. I took 2 weeks off to just resettle in. I have been traveling a lot. I was in Utah, I was in Colorado, I was down in North Carolina, and then I was down in Florida. It was like a 3 week trip that I actually did that backwards. So, like, reverse that is how I actually did the trip. And currently, I'm in a new studio and a new setup. So, I'm pretty excited about how things will feel moving forward because I'm in a new space. And energetically, that just like opens so much up. To set the mood, I guess, of like where I'm at currently is it is dark. It is evening. It is like kind of chillier outside. So it's definitely has that winter kind of edgy feel, which feels very cozy. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll definitely see the new setup behind me. So it feels like a fresh start, which has been kind of, I guess, the beginning energies of this next new month. And before I start into like the newer energies, I have definitely been feeling the ending energies and the death energies and the letting go of shit energies. This past week has been super brutal for myself. And I have spoken to a few of my really good friends, and they also are feeling this really intense energy. And I wonder if you are also feeling this too. So, it kind of all made sense when I was starting to put some things together because October is a 9 month. So that is numerologically endings. We're completing things, we're letting go of things. And in November, 1 1 is going, or 11 1 is going to be a number one. So it's like the new beginning, the new fresh start, which is like really fitting for like now this marking of like the season because I was like reflecting back, like this week is an extremely witchy week. And it is the period of time where the veil is said to be the thinnest. And there is so much magic within this week. And not to say that there isn't magic every single day of the year, in my opinion, but this season and this week is by far my favorite season and week of like probably the entire year. It has been a hallmark of my family. And we always say like Halloween is like our family's Christmas. So it's always like a very fun time of decorating and getting into the spirit, doing things, carving pumpkins, like planning our costumes. Where are we going to go? Who are we going to be? And it's like usually this like really group thing that feels like really fun. And in the midst of me having this huge trip to Utah, which was like the first time that I really kind of drove through this land, really spent time in this land. And I've been called to it for this past year. And I had a huge energy session in the middle of it right before I got to the land. And it was like, for me, there was a lot of kind of codes coming into the land and having this knowing and awareness of like there's a huge release from previous lifetimes. There's this huge impact that I'm going to feel from going through this land. And if you've listened to the podcast long enough, I talk about this a lot, especially with the way that I travel is like it's not for nothing if you feel guided to go somewhere and you feel like called to go to a certain aspect or country or like piece of land or whatever, because there is codes for you and there's codes for the land, vice versa. So I knew going into it was going to be pretty powerful for myself. And I kind of went through the trip, did the whole thing, didn't really kind of forgot about this huge release I was going to have. I was just like in the trip, in the experience. And then once I got back, and once I got home, I was like hit by a freaking bus, is what I felt like cue the Mean Girls scene of like when Regina's just like plowed down. That's how I felt. Like there was so much happening. I was still moving and I had my storage unit that has been a time capsule for my past life, I guess. Nearly 3 years ago, it was like a time capsule in this pod that I had when I sold my house in New York. And if you don't know the story, which I'm sure you do, but sold my house in New York, packed up my things, like quit my job, all the things, and then just like one-way ticket to Bali, and then just ended up spending traveling abroad for a year. And when I came back, then I was in St. Louis for a year and I'm just trying to figure out, what was next and such. And so this pod has been this time capsule of my life, the energy, who I was, very much Erica energy. And I knew I was going to be going through this, like opening up all this stuff. And not for nothing, I was just like, whatever, this is going to be fine. This is going to be like not a big deal. And so I unpacked, I went through the things. Things were not as like dramatic as I thought it was going to be. Like I was actually proud of my past self because things were quite like organized, even though I didn't feel like that when I was like packing. So it was like a pleasant surprise. I was like, oh, this is not that bad. Like I'm going through things I'm not getting rid of as much as I thought I was. But in the midst of this, like it took me a few days after the fact of like going through this and like opening things up and setting them out and like seeing them again, like all of my books, all of my crystals, all of my paintings, all of my art, like all this stuff, which were really exciting and fun things to see again. Old photos, they were so great. I loved having them again and I do love them, but it was reminders and these like energies of like past selves. So, and selves of people in my life, like their past selves. And so I was like met with the energy of this. And I just had a really just grueling mental go at things and just was like really going through shit. Like it felt like it was difficult to keep my head above water and I was moving through all these emotions. And for the first time, over the course of the last few years of all the work that I have been doing with embodiment of feeling emotions, of allowing space for those things, not just thinking about how I'm feeling, but actually feeling it. And I sat in a place now in hindsight out of that wave. I was able to really like hold that really deep space for myself. And it was out of reflection after talking to a friend today, just kind of recapping this. I was like, holy shit, this is what the aftermath of what being in the Utah land, like knowing I was going to have this huge release of this past life and current stuff that was happening. And then coming back and then dealing with all of this stuff, like no fucking shit that I had such a hard go at things. So it was just funny reflecting, be like, oh, those are all the things that I was feeling. So, if you're feeling any sort of level of this, of having these old thoughts, these old beliefs, these old actions, these old patterns, these old loops that are coming up, and you're like, damn, I thought I released these things. I thought I moved past this stuff. Like, I thought I was on the next track, but now it's coming back again. Like, I really wholeheartedly think that this is a period in time now in this 9 month, in the energy, even astrologically. I'm not an astrologer, but like I was reading up on some of the stuff that's happening this week, and it's just a lot. Like, no wonder if you're feeling a lot of things. Like, there's a lot going on. And so all this stuff is happening that if you are feeling this type of way, allow yourself to feel it, take that deep breath, find different ways to get back in your body. And that's what I did. Like I brought it back to how I was feeling in my body, moving my body, and not in a way that I think I would think about moving my body. I literally just stretched. Like I sat in a wide child's pose for several minutes, just releasing energy in my hips. And then later that day, just like tears, just so much shit came out, like just so much I was able to release. And in order for us to really step into like that next chapter of ourselves, that next vision, the person that we want to be in the next year that's doing all these things, because like this is the end of the year, we're winding down, we're almost in November, we're already starting to think of like the new year, new year resolutions, 2025. And that can feel kind of scary to think because you're like, shit, like what did I do this year? And like, have I been accountable to myself to like doing all the things that I thought that I said I was going to do? We think about and reflect about all of the like New Year's resolutions. And we're like, okay, have I done all the things that I said I wanted to do? Or is this another year that just like, it just passes us by again? And I feel like I'm in the same place in a different year. And that's really frustrating to feel. And I have been there and it's not fun to feel, but we do kind of have to like take off our own rose colored glasses to be like, okay, where am I not being truthful to how I feel, what I want, who I want to be, and how am I not showing up as that? So, anyways, that was like a side rant. But so I'm met with all of these things. And in a lot of ways, it's easy to just like shove that off and shove it down and just be like, I don't want to deal with that. I don't want to think about that. And in this case, I really had no choice. Like I had so much space in my body, in my field energetically, in my like emotional awareness that like all I could do was feel it. Like there was enough room for me to feel it, to just take on all of that and to really go down to the depths that I really needed myself to go to really flush all of it out. And all of it, I mean, there's so much, left to flush out. So it's not like, oh, I'm a very clear vessel and, that's all done. Like that's it. Unfortunately and fortunately, when we're on this spiritual path, it's just ongoing. You get through certain blocks and beliefs and patterns, and then you tweak those, you become that next version, and then you kind of keep going at it again. I think in my experience so far, and I'd like to think as we continue, it gets less and less cloudy. There was a really good visual actually on Instagram that I saw a while back, and it was like this really dirty water, and they had like ping pongs and stuff, or ping pong balls like stuffed in the cup of water. And as you're starting to like heal and do all this work and shit, like the huge balls come out, and then as like the water is flushing, like new water is flushing into the cup, so it's like slowly getting less and less dirty and less dark, but like still shit is coming out as it's like being flushed out. So it's kind of like I really picture that past week, kind of like that. It really felt like more was being flushed out, that I almost got everything, but there was a few more things, a few more beliefs, a few more, just crap that had to be let go of. Like you have to be able to release and let go and forgive and make space for that new vision and for the new energies to come through. So that is what I was feeling last week. It was what I was been moving through. And it was interesting because Utah felt extremely vibrationally the same as an area in Australia that I went to right smack in the middle called Uluru. And I mean, it's a similar terrain, like a super red, it's rocky, it's dry, and there's not a whole lot going on there, like city wise. It's pretty like small town, like kind of desolate because it takes a lot to live there. But it felt super familiar. And I felt really good in that area in Australia last year, or 2 years ago now. I don't know. What is time? At some point when I was in Australia. Yeah, and so it was interesting to see how I felt there. And with that in combination of going through all of these belongings of like past 3 years, met with a new version of me now in the energy of Stormy and really deeper into my soul expression. It was interesting for now all of that to kind of rise and be into the surface. So if you're feeling this type of way, if you're feeling like, oh my gosh, all these old thoughts or beliefs or patterns are coming up, I really think that like at this moment in time, we're kind of met with these two distinct, different paths that we can choose. It's like, track A, not, and it's like, of course, and disclaimer, I'm just going to say it, even though we all know nothing is right or wrong, good or bad, better or worse or whatnot. It's just the choice that we get to choose our experience, whether or not we want to, go left or right, like whatever. It's all neutral in the grand scheme of things. So, track A, if we go right, then I'm going to continue the track that I had done, what was comfortable, what's familiar. Maybe to you, this is relationship, career, ways of being, where you're living, how you're operating in relationships with each other. Could be any of those things. And then track B, if we go left, is the opposite. We do something new. We change our course. We decide to be different. We decide to make a different choice. We decide a different career. We decide to be in a relationship with maybe a more healed version of somebody, or, so it's like, it's kind of very distinct. And you can feel into this where this applies in your life right now. And it super was like, kind of slapped me in the face this week of all of these thoughts, all of these things that were coming through. And because this week is so massive energetically, there was a lot of clearing I had to do. There was a lot of infiltrating that I felt like was happening. Is this my energy? Is this not my energy? Or is this this is someone else's thoughts and feelings? Is this another energy that's being projected on me and I'm just absorbing this thinking it's mine? So it's really like being able to be very powerful in your discernment of like, okay, is this me or is this something else or somebody else? But also, is this new me or is this old me? And a really good thing that helped me move through this week and what continues to always like help me move through different chapters within myself is like seeing the patterns that come up, seeing the thoughts, seeing the habits, seeing everything that I want to change, we'll say, and seeing those things of like that is going to be the first reaction that usually comes up because that's how we're used to doing things, how we're used to responding, or how we're used to thinking. And so just being able to be aware of that's old me, I recognize it. I'm not always able to do the new me thing, but I do recognize more and more and more that what is the old me. And then as we have that increased awareness, then we're able to choose that new track more frequently and more in real time instead of reflecting back to be like, oh shit, I just reacted the same way I used to, or I made that same decision that I used to react, maybe in scarcity or lack or fear or any of those kind of feelings. So you'll be able to kind of really feel into where that applies in your life, into what category, into what the severity is. So try that. Try to just recognize, okay, and label and not be like, oh man, like I fell into it again. Cause I can definitely, lean into that. And then you're just like beating yourself up about not feeling like you're farther along or like you're over this. So just continues to recognize, oh, that's old me. That's okay. I see her. I love her, but we're choosing for her not to be in the driver's seat anymore. We're choosing new me, we're choosing other way. And it's funny because I had this realization when I was, again in Utah on this mountaintop. And my friend and I just decided to do a really good dose of mushrooms. And I had this aha moment where I was like tripping my balls off. And I was looking at a glow stick and I'm seeing the glow stick have a bubble in it. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, my God, this is like us as a body. And we have this personality. We're putting all these different colors in or, different textures or whatever. And we say, oh, this is me. But really that's just like a personality we choose to be. Like we can decide to change a personality. Like it's like having that question of like, what is really me and what is something that I'm trying on? A mask I'm trying on, a flavor, a perspective, an energy, like all of these things are really fun ways to get to know ourselves and to really expand our souls. And so there comes a time where we can look at that awareness and remember that like we're not subject to just always be that way. Like you can decide to change. And it's having that, oh yeah, this is just something that I'm choosing to be like. And if I'm tired of this, then I could just choose to be a different way. And it can be as simple as that. And we like to overcomplicate things and be like, no, it's not, but it is. Like I'm not like that anymore. I'm like this. And so you just decide. Maybe that'll help you. And then I want to talk, and I actually sent off a newsletter talking about this idea. So I went a little bit deeper into the newsletter. So if you're not on the newsletter, I do write a little snippet blog post about what's going on, sometimes a little deeper into different avenues or thoughts because I love to write. So I started to write a bit and more. So if you're interested in signing up on the newsletter, you can just go to the website and it's free. It's usually weekly and it's a fun way to dive deeper within the realm of Stormy and different situations I like to teach on. So this newsletter was about the concept of a witch and what it means to identify as a witch and how my own reclamation of identifying as a witch has transformed the way that I really operate in my energy and honor what actually happens and really showing up to all the magic that I create and the energy that I have. And sometimes we try these masks on, or we try these categories on to be like, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this, I'm that, you're this, I'm that. I understand you because you're this and I'm that. You know what I mean? And sometimes these categories can be so boxed in and it can feel very suffocating. And I have felt that with a lot of different categories. We try to like understand self and other related to these categories. But I find in these more like magical, mystical categories, if you get more esoteric with identification, I feel a lot more freedom in that and kind of like, ooh, I can just like move and be this like other aspect of self. Like I can try this like archetype on. And I have done this in the last several months since this summer as being like, yeah, I am a witch. And what does witch mean to you? And a lot of times, and I go through the newsletter, like what a witch means to me and how I'm showing up as such, and how this season specifically can like activate the witch in us, and how we can dive deeper into what this means, and how we can just then apply that to the rest of our lives throughout the year, even outside of spooky season, because I think the whole year should be spooky season. I think it is. And yeah, so that was a really interesting like concept to go deeper into. So again, you could just sign up for the newsletter and learn about that. So I am sending you lots of love and support this week, and especially since I know that energetically it feels like it's been a lot, and I feel like, you know, if you're feeling that, you're going to feel like you can get your head above the water very soon. It lifted for me the last, day or two, and it will lift even more the rest of this week, especially once we get into that new November energy. And know when we do have these seasons of turmoil or emotions or sadness or this darkness or whatever, we know that this is the ebb and flow, and what goes up must come down, and as above and as below. And so when we're in a season of this, we're in a season of release and purge and letting go and burning it all down, and really going deep into those emotions. On the other side of that will be rebirth and light and feeling lighter and expanded and more to be in the field. And it's really easy to forget about that when you're in it. And then when you're out of it, you're like, oh, that's why all that had to happen, because now I get to hold all of this and have all these feelings. So just give yourself some self-care and love and rest, and be gentle with yourself in this season, especially as we go into this wintry inwards looking season. If your season right now is going through winter, so you might be experiencing a different season right now, but that's currently what I am feeling into. And just sending a lot of support. I'll be releasing soon a few more aspects of support, and I'm excited because the energy that I am holding now has been able to expand into different offers that'll come through. So that'll be coming soon. Relatively, I'll have more information once the intuition and the strike is ready. So I guess I'll just say when I'm guided to do so. So until then, I will see you in the next episode. Let me know if this resonates with you, if you have felt this past week, and send it to somebody if you feel like they need a little support. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. You can like or comment, it's super helpful. You can follow the podcast and subscribe. Super helps to grow the show. And until then, I will see you in the next episode.